Chapter 261. He liked to hear her beg and call hubby. How was it? Has it ended? Hearing Gu Jingze's voice made Lin Che feel as if she was in a dream and stepping back into reality. He always had that calm and soothing voice. It was so beautiful that it could pull anyone who was in a foul mood back into the spring breeze. She suddenly found herself missing him a lot and she wanted to see him badly. Lin Che said, yes. I'll be done soon. I was just about done too. Shall I pick you up? Yes, okay. Lin Che happily replied. Thinking that she was going to be able to see Gu Jingze immediately, her face broke into a beautiful smile. Qin Wanwan noticed Lin Che smiling. She walked over and asked, "What are you doing? I haven't congratulated you for your win. Let's go out and celebrate tonight." Lin Che laughed and said, "No, I'm leaving soon." So fast. Who are you going to celebrate with? Qin Wanwan asked and her eyes shifted to Gu Jingze who was talking to someone else. Lin Che said, "It's not him. Anyway, I'm heading out first. Enjoy yourselves." Without saying anything else, Lin Che made a beeline for the exit. Qin Wanwan watched in puzzlement. Why was she running away so fast as if she was in a hurry to meet someone? Gu Jingze's car was stopped by the road. Lin Che ran over and saw Gu Jingze quickly get out of the car. He was still wearing what he wore to work, a proper and traditional suit. It didn't look old-fashioned on him at all. Instead, it made him look more gentlemanly and graceful. Overall, he looked extremely dashing. Lin Che realized that she really liked seeing Gu Jingze dress formally like that. It was so uniform and full of control. Seeing Gu Jingze made her feel that she was actually already sufficiently lucky. For an average girl like her to be able to stand beside Gu Jingze, thinking about it, many girls couldn't see him even if they lined up waiting. She felt that she was already very bullish. Running over, Lin Che asked, "You're not busy today?" Gu Jingze looked at her get up and smiled in admiration. He pulled her into the car with him. "Did you win the award?" he asked. Lin Che pouted, "No, but I won the online poll for most popular actress. It's also very rare." "Why, are you unhappy?" Gu Jingze looked at her and asked. Lin Che sighed and said, "Would it be very vulgar if I said that I am indeed unhappy and disappointed at this point?" "Ha, you're still concerned about being vulgar?" Gu Jingze said. "Of course, if I'm vulgar, the big CEO won't like it." Gu Jingze rolled his eyes at her. Indeed, he did not like vulgar women. However, he didn't feel any hatred towards her kind of vulgarness at all. Lin Che lowered her head and said, "It's nothing. I just feel a little let down. Although I knew from the beginning that it was impossible, I couldn't resist thinking that maybe there could be a miracle. Now that there was no miracle, I'm disappointed." Gu Jingze couldn't bear to see her look so down. Although she only frowned a little, his heart already ached for her. He didn't want to see her face any obstacle in her life. He wanted to offer her his greatest protection and make everything go smoothly for her. He knew that it was impossible, but he was upset that she was unhappy. He was never this sensitive when it came to Mohilling last time. But towards Lin Che, he was fastidious. Gu Jingze thought for a while, "This is also a very normal thing. You will get over it after a few days. Alright, don't think so much. Since we have plenty of time, let's go shopping." "Shopping? I don't think there is any place we can shop at this time." "Think about where you'd like to go." Lin Che pondered, "Then can we go watch a movie?" "A movie?" Gu Jingze thought that it was a really boring activity. But looking down at Lin Che and seeing the anticipation glistening in her eyes, he forced himself to agree, "Okay, I'll go watch a movie with you." "Wow, really?" Lin Che exclaimed in surprise. She didn't expect Gu Jingze to agree. Gu Jingze saw her suddenly happy again. Her smile reached the depths of his heart and finally made him more willing. This woman was like a piece of blank paper, any mood was so truthfully written on her face. She could be so happy just from a small matter. It really made him very speechless. Gu Jingze said, "Go get changed before I change my mind." She was still wearing her evening gown, which she couldn't possibly go to the theater in. Both of them went to change their clothes before driving to the cinema. It was already midnight, but there were still many people at the cinema. Lin Che wore a surgical mask and cap to cover herself as she looked at people going back and forth. Gu Jingze was also dressed very low profile. The trouble made Lin Che feel slightly embarrassed. She looked up at Gu Jingze and said, Gu Jingze, tell me. I'm troubling you again, aren't I? You probably don't like coming to the cinema. Gu Jingze looked down at Lin Che. Although she was very troublesome, he was touched by her words every single time. He thought that she was the one who was being troubled and he no longer thought that it was hard to accept. In any case, it was as if he simply couldn't reject any of her requests. Even if his brain told him that he didn't want to, his heart was still very willing. Indeed, I don't like coming here. Why don't we head back? He tilted his head and intentionally teased her. No, hubby, watch a movie with me, please. Other husbands watch movies with their wives. The dumb woman indeed fell for his trap. She immediately tugged his hand and began begging him. He wanted to laugh but he kept a straight face. At that moment, he somehow really enjoyed hearing her beg and call him, hubby. He always wanted to hear her say that word. Hubby, you see. Take it as a life experience. If the big CEO doesn't step into the life of a commoner, how would he know what the commoners need? You need to go undercover once in a while so that you know what everybody is doing. Seriously, yet another twisted logic. Gu Jingze said, fine, let's go buy tickets. Lin Che heard this and immediately began selecting the movie happily. What do you think is good? She mulled over the list. Actually, I'm not that familiar with movies, he remarked. Lin Che said, do you really not watch movies at all? I like to watch some old movies but I haven't seen new ones. Do you think that everybody is as free as you? I don't have the time to bother about all these. Even if it was an old movie, I haven't seen one in 2 years. Lin Che lifted her head and looked at Gu Jingze. For a moment, she felt that it was actually very pitiful. It must be tiring. It was indeed not easy to be a big CEO. Lin Che wanted to continue selecting but she realized that people were starting to look over at them curiously. Chapter 262. My Little Passion with You in the Cinema. Lin Che was aware of all the curious eyes on her and she was puzzled. She thought that she already disguised herself well enough. How could anyone still see through it? Then, she realized the true focal point of their stares. Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze stood tall and although he dressed very low profile, he still looked a lot more radiant than any average person next to him. All eyes fell on him, so it was useless to disguise herself. People were still going to notice anything that was different. Lin Che looked at this man scornfully. Why was he so good-looking and attractive? It was honestly kind of a flaw too. Thus, Lin Che didn't drag the time any longer and quickly chose a movie. She then dragged Gu Jingze in. It was dark inside and no one was going to be able to see anything. As they walked in, Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che and saw other people holding hands and cuddling. He followed and held Lin Che's hand. Despite his habits over many years, he actually didn't like any intimate actions outside. However, he didn't feel that way when he held Lin Che now. He was only slightly unaccustomed to it. He thought that she was his wife and nobody would have the rights to say anything even if they saw him holding hands with his wife. Thus, he continued holding her as they walked in. The two of them chose an American blockbuster. Lin Che hugged the popcorn in one hand and held Gu Jingze's hand in the other. Their seats were at the back and there was a lot of popcorn in her hand. The staff saw that Gu Jingze was handsome, so they gave the little lady more. Lin Che thought that this was really a superficial world. Lin Che munched on the popcorn and smiled at Gu Jingze, why are you looking around? Don't tell me that you've never been to the cinema. Lin Che asked when she saw Gu Jingze looking at his surroundings and seemed so curious. That's right, you know that we have our own home theater. If you want to watch something, we can make it like this. Lin Che said speechlessly, that's an entirely different feeling. And the seats are much more comfortable than these. You don't get it, Gu Jingze. Don't you see, there is a certain ambiance here. It's so dark and you can't see anything. Hee. Looking at this atmosphere will make you want to just kiss and hug. Gu Jingze faced her and looked at her mischievous smile. He immediately understood. The kiss and hug was no ordinary kiss and hug. We can kiss and hug anywhere. We can do it at home, in the hotel, and anywhere else. Ha, what feelings would there be? I can see that you don't understand. Doing a little hanky-panky things in a place filled with people is so exciting. As the saying goes, a concubine is better than a wife and a lover is better than a concubine. The fruit you can have is not as sweet as the fruit you can't have. Thus, people feel that it is more exciting to be sneaky. Was this something that a girl should say? Gu Jingze always thought that this woman was very dirty, but she always had her limits. Now, it was crystal clear. He realized that this was not the case. She had no limits. Gu Jingze said in a low voice, so this is the kind of thing that you like. Lin Che quickly explained, I don't like it. Be clear about it. I was just saying that others like it. It doesn't matter. I can understand if you have some special hobbies. If you want me to cooperate with you, I can also cooperate with you accordingly. As he spoke, Lin Che felt his hand caressing her thigh. What? Lin Che exclaimed speechlessly, bastard, I didn't say that. She quickly hid his hand away. He smirked without a word. I'm imparting knowledge to you. Seriously, how do you date women? You had a girlfriend before and you actually don't even know all this. We don't watch movies, Gu Jingze remarked. Then, what do you guys do? Sit and face each other daily? Of course not. We watched musicals, drank tea, listened to music, ate and attended concerts. Stop. I get it, you guys are extremely boring. I pity Miss Mo. How did she meet such a blockhead? He didn't know anything. And the main thing was that she didn't ask for it. Gu Jingze froze. Thinking back, he indeed hadn't done anything memorable with Mo Hilling. Although they were together for so many years, he really couldn't recall anything that happened between him and Mo Hilling. He looked at Lin Che and said plainly, in the past, I didn't think too much about dating. I also didn't properly think about caring about how the other party felt. I will improve on this aspect. Lin Che felt Gu Jingze grab her hand. He said plainly, in the future, I will ask you more about what you like. Lin Che's heart warmed up. She looked up at Gu Jingze, actually there's no need to. That wasn't my point anyway. Gu Jingze's serious expression always seemed to be firmly promising something. His lips curled up slightly and his eyes glistened like black gems in the dark. Nobody dared to look straight into them. One look at him would make the person feel like they were being sucked into his vortex of affection. Gu Jingze felt that he indeed never took notice when he was with Mo Hilling. He didn't take notice of her moods and never thought that making her happy would make him happy too. He gazed at her and gently held her chin. In the darkness, the light from the screen flickered on them. His lips opened, his tongue curled around her lips, and then went into her mouth. His kiss was really getting neater. He seemed to be already familiar with all her sensitive spots. His fingers traced her body, caressing and searching for the area between her legs. Fuck. She was really frightened by herself. When did she become such a lustful woman? However, when his tongue retreated back out, she felt disappointed. She couldn't control herself as she opened her mouth and took the initiative to find his full lips. His tongue felt her movement and instantly became fierier. Her tongue was numb from his rough movements. However, it didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, she still wanted more. She almost wanted to moan. Chapter 263. Her coverage that day turned out to be huge. It was over. There was no way they were going to watch the movie. Lin Che gasped quietly. She pushed Gu Jingze away and he said softly, let's go. But the movie. If we stay here any longer I might just eat you up right here. Lin Che speechlessly said, why are you so? Gu Jingze replied, you're asking me. Why don't you ask yourself? If you wanted it so badly, why didn't you just say it? Lin Che immediately blushed. Gu Jingze said, you're almost sucking me in. How can I resist that? Quote. They couldn't stay in the cinema any longer. Gu Jingze pulled her along and went home. This whole night had really been tiring. Gu Jingze lied down on the bed. He tapped Lin Che's nose and said, tonight, you're going to squeeze me dry. Lin Che wanted to cry. What did it have to do with her? Gu Jingze said, let's sleep. Don't touch me again, otherwise, neither of us are going to be able to sleep tonight. He kissed her forehead and added, I already haven't slept for 2 days. If I still have to serve you now, you might just become a widow. Lin Che heard this and couldn't help but worry about Gu Jingze. How come? Why didn't you sleep in the past 2 days? I was just busy, he replied. Lin Che quickly said, go sleep then. Don't talk anymore. Her heart was very moved. He actually didn't sleep for 2 days. Why didn't he say anything before? She wouldn't have suggested catching a movie then. This man was really too stubborn. Lin Che thought, it looked like the filthy rich really didn't have it easy. She sighed and watched him. Not long after he lay there, he really fell asleep. Her eyes traced his perfect shape. She couldn't resist and lowered her head towards him, planting a gentle kiss on the tip of his nose. Perhaps, it wasn't just a little temptation towards him. The next day. It only took one night for news of the Panda TV festival to flood the pages. From the red carpet to the awards and celebration party, there was plenty of news. The reporters caught a lot of information that others didn't manage to. The biggest article was naturally focused on Mu Feiren. Whether it was her clothes or her prowess during the ceremony, she was amazing. However, besides Mu Feiren, the next biggest article turned out to be Lin Che's. Because when the reporters headed back, they received information that some people recognized Lin Che's clothes and jewelry that night. The things she wore were extremely pricey and many couldn't have been bought with money. Many artists also secretly speculated about who exactly was Lin Che's support. Her get-up was too expensive. Just how powerful did her support need to be in order to give her all those? Furthermore, these were clearly not sponsored. Everybody knew that these brands would never look for endorsements. Thus, this meant that all her clothes and accessories were bought. Clearly, her support was someone very rich and powerful. This was naturally only one point. The other point was that the reporters captured her interaction with Gu Jingze. The two of them looked intimate and would have made anybody imagine things. Meanwhile, she also seemed to get along well with Mu Feiren and that made many envy her. What exact abilities did Lin Che have for her to also be able to get along with such big shots? After that, there was also a special write-up on her reaction to winning the online poll award. Her stunned and wooden expression was simply too funny. This vivid performance sent everyone into a heated discussion. They thought that Lin Che was really a blur and a dazed celebrity. It made her all the more likable. All these segments put together seemed to take up an entire page. In comparison, Qin Wanwan's expensive jewelry from major sponsors obviously was not talked about, even though they should have also been worth mentioning. They were merely sponsors, and although they were big brands, they did not look as good as Lin Che's clothes and jewelry. Every extra penny deserved its value. Big brands were selling their brand names. The real good stuff was all those unknown things owned by the filthy rich. Lin Che received many congratulatory greetings in the company. Although it was just an online poll award, everyone thought that it was already very great. However, some artists in the company still treated her coldly. They thought that it was embarrassing that she didn't win after being nominated. But when they won an award, they also had a big coverage in the papers. They knew that they were already winners in this Panda TV festival. Yu Minmin said to Lin Che, "You must work harder next time." Lin Che nodded, knowing that she had a long way to go along her path. She said, "I really need to thank you for all these years, Sister Yu." Yu Minmin laughed and said, "To be honest, I actually didn't think that you would become famous in the beginning." "Why, were my qualifications that bad?" Lin Che asked speechlessly. Yu Minmin said, "You're too dumb and silly. Also, your temper is embarrassing. But perhaps good things always come to good people." Yang Lingxin followed behind. She looked at the jewelry on Lin Che and said, "Yes, Sister Yu. And Sister Che, you still have Gu Jingze to help you. These accessories look so pretty. They are actually so expensive." Lin Che said, "Maybe Gu Jingze only borrowed them." But looking at the accessories, Yang Lingxin's eyes continued to sparkle. Lin Che only thought that this child was like this because she never saw such things before. Thus, she didn't say much. Just then, Lin Che received a call from home and she picked it up. Yu Minmin said, alright, let's not look at the reports anymore. Yang Lingxin said enviously, Sister Che is so gorgeous this time. It's so good to be a star. So glamorous. That's because you never saw how much Lin Che suffered when she was a small fry. And not everybody can be as hardworking and lucky as Lin Che. Yes, Sister Che is very lucky, she said. At this time, Lin Che returned and said to Yu Minmin, it turns out that Mr. President's birthday is in a few days. Yu Minmin's eyes flashed after hearing Mr. President's name. Lin Che said, the GU family is going to have a gathering and it seems like Mr. President is going to be there too. Really? Yu Minmin said, then, I guess you're going to be busy soon. Yu Minmin looked outside. Mr. President's birthday. Actually, there were already talks of it outside. Mr. President's fans already started celebrating online a few days ago. It was just that Gu Jingming always kept a low profile and never really celebrated his birthday. C Nation's media quickly spread news of it around and celebrated Gu Jingming's birthday themselves. Yu Minmin looked and closed the news. She told Lin Che that she was going to head home. Lin Che asked, do you want to go together on that day? Yu Minmin said, no, I have something to do at home. Chapter 264, The President's Birthday Banquet. Lin Che said, okay then. I can actually bring people with me. This time, it won't be at the Gu family's house. It'll be at a resort outside. I think that since it's the president's birthday, it'll be pretty fun. Sister Yu, you should come over if you have the time. I'll go over if I'm free. Yang Lingxin listened behind and said enviously, how nice. When Sister Che is with Gu Jingze, you must be surrounded by big shots like Mr. President. Lin Che only laughed, it's alright. Actually, I never made many contacts with the outsiders. However, she was still not that close to Yang Lingxin, so she didn't want to invite her along. She was a young girl after all. Lin Che was afraid that if she went, she might not understand things and cause a nuisance. No matter what, Sister Yu was more prim and proper. Mr. President's birthday had become viral online. Although his birthday was never publicly announced, his fans already found out about all his personal details including his birthday. They weren't going to let it slide. Lin Che and Gu Jingze made preparations together and arranged the birthday banquet at a good resort. The outside of the resort was already cordoned off while everything inside the big resort was prepared for the Gu family. Lin Che spent the whole morning getting ready. Gu Jingze helped pick out her outfit. It was gracious, proper, and brightly colored. Because she wasn't old, she naturally looked very youthful. When Gu Jingze brought Lin Che in, she quickly saw Mu Wanqing standing there with a pretty lady. The lady looked a little like Mu Wanqing and she seemed to be in her 20s. She looked comparable to any celebrity and had an aura about her. Seeing Lin Che and Gu Jingze come in, Mu Wanqing quickly said, Jingyan, this is your new sister-in-law that I've mentioned, Lin Che. Little Che, this is Jingze's sister, Jingyan. Because you didn't have a wedding ceremony, this is your first time meeting each other. It turned out to be Gu Jingze's younger sister who was always overseas. Gu Jingyan looked at Lin Che and said, oh my. Sister-in-law is younger than me. Second brother, you must be much older than her. Aren't you being like an old cow eating young grass? Gu Jingze heard this and his face darkened. Lin Che smiled bashfully. Gu Jingyan said, sister-in-law, my brother must be so hard to please. It must be hard on you. Lin Che laughed and said, never mind. I'm already used to it. Gu Jingze glared at Lin Che, how am I hard to please? Since when were you the one pleasing me? He raised his brow, hasn't it always been me pleasing you? Only Lin Che understood that provocative pun. Her cheeks flushed and she reached up to strangle Gu Jingze. Gu Jingyan watched in surprise, no way. Since when did second brother joke around with others? Am I seeing things wrong, Mom? Mu Wanqing smiled until her eyes formed two lines, your sister-in-law taught him well. Gu Jingze pulled his face. He held up his fist over his mouth and coughed dryly. Mu Wanqing said, they are married. If they want to joke around, they can joke around. Why would he joke around with you? Gu Jingze said, yes. You're not funny at all. There is nothing to joke about with you. Lin Che initially didn't understand, but she quickly caught the meaning. He was implying that she was a joke. She turned around and asked, "Who is the joke?" "You are the joke," Gu Jingze said. "Being the joke is your good point. You should treasure it since you don't have many merits." "No, my greatest merit is that I'm so tolerant towards someone with completely no merits like you." Gu Jingze scoffed and tapped her head. Across them, Gu Jingyan said, "Brother, you really forgot all about your sister after you found your wife. You haven't seen me for a year and instead of talking to me, you're still flirting with sister-in-law." Although she said that, Gu Jingyan didn't seem angry at all. Instead, she found the two of them rather interesting. Gu Jingze said, "Right. You haven't returned in such a long time. How come you're back now?" Mu Wanqing joined in. "Your sister brought back her boyfriend. She said that she's going to marry him." "Really?" Gu Jingze asked. "Somebody actually wants you. You're so fierce." Gu Jingyan retorted willfully, "You're full of problems and have that illness, but people still want you." Mu Wanqing was also very happy that she was finally going to marry. Gu Jingze asked, "Where is my brother-in-law? I don't see him." Gu Jingyan's expression stiffened. She said, "He's not here yet. I'll check later." Outside, someone announced that Mr. President had arrived. Gu Jingze said, "Then, you can introduce him to me later. I'm going to greet brother first." As he spoke, he tugged Lin Che along with him and they walked over. Gu Jingyan took out her phone and found a number. She took a deep breath and dialed it. "Lu Baikan, are you coming?" "Jingyan, something cropped up. I might be a little delayed." "What happened?" Gu Jingyan asked strangely. "Just a small thing. I'll go over once I'm done. I'll call you." Lu Baikan hung up. Gu Jingyan held her phone and her expression lingered for a moment. Turning around, she saw Mu Wanqing walking towards her. "What's wrong, Jingyan?" Gu Jingyan quickly went back to her normal self. "Baikan said that something cropped up and he'll be here later." "I see. Okay, you should be more understanding when men get busy. He came here with you from really far away. It's understandable that he has some matters left unsettled. Although, I do remember that you were together in high school with him. But he wasn't your boyfriend then, right?" Gu Jingyan said, "Yeah. We only confirmed our relationship when we went to study abroad together." "Ah, I remember during that time, he seemed to have a girlfriend." A ripple flashed across Gu Jingyan's eyes. She held Mu Wanqing's arm. "It's not like I didn't have a boyfriend either back then. It's all in the past, right?" "Very well. I just remember that you two got along very well in high school. I haven't seen him in years, so I wanted to ask." Yes, she had been good friends with Lu Baikan in high school. At that time, he had a girlfriend and she had a boyfriend. However, nobody knew that she had feelings for him since then. After that, he broke up and went to study in the US. She went too. In their first year, they would occasionally chat on the phone as friends. One year, they went camping together. She shared a tent with him. The minor incident sparked a fire. Their friendship shifted to a romantic relationship as lovers. Mu Wanqing remembered clearly that he had a girlfriend back then. However, she forgot that his ex-girlfriend was Gu Jingyan's best friend, Fu Chengxi. At the other side, Gu Jingming arrived and everybody gathered at the door. Gu Jingming thanked everyone and said embarrassingly, "Sorry to make all of you spend so much organizing a birthday banquet for me." Gu Jingze replied, "Otherwise, you would be too busy that no excuses would make you come back." Chapter 265. We didn't take fancy to each other, we took it to bed first. Lin Che stood beside Gu Jingze. She looked at Gu Jingming and said plainly, "Happy birthday, brother." Actually, calling the president, brother, was really hard for Lin Che to say. Just like how, in the beginning, she always felt as if she was floating around in a dream when she was with Gu Jingze. She thought that her real life was too different, but it was indeed her own real life. Gu Jingming smiled and let everybody head back in. There were many people present. This time, it was not just the Gu family members who were invited. There were also some politicians and his supporters. Naturally, they were all successful people. Lin Che looked over there and suddenly saw someone in the distance looking at Gu Jingze. Lin Che found the cold smile familiar. Who was the man who was with Mo Hiling that day? His name was Li Mingyu. Why was he here? Gu Jingze also noticed him just then. He narrowed his eyes as he looked over. Then, he pulled Lin Che along and said, "Come on. Let's go in." It was early spring and the day was still cool. They needed to wear coats outside. After Lin Che and Gu Jingze went in, they took off their coats and let the maids take them away. Just then, Li Mingyu's voice snorted behind, "President Gu, walking away after seeing me. What's the meaning of this?" Gu Jingze turned around. "I'm not avoiding you. I just have nothing to say to you." Li Mingyu's eyes looked up and down the pretty Lin Che. He laughed and asked, "Why? Do you really have nothing to say, or is it because you feel uncomfortable that your previous woman is now with me?" Gu Jingze scoffed. He looked coldly at Li Mingyu. "If you're talking about Hiling, then whatever she does now already has nothing to do with me. If you really want to be together, be my guest." Li Mingyu really didn't expect to see Gu Jingze suddenly so casual. "Ha, what a good pretense. I don't believe that you'd get over your old lover so quickly. Please watch your tongue. Isn't it rude to talk about some old lover in front of my wife?" "That's right. I don't care anymore because I'm already a married man now. Everything in the past is already put behind me." He grabbed Lin Che's hand and turned away. Li Mingyu narrowed his eyes at him and couldn't quite believe it. Lin Che also turned back to look. She then looked up at Gu Jingze. He may or may not have said that on purpose, but hearing him speak so firmly made Lin Che really happy in her heart. She looked up at his indifferent expression. For the first time, she felt that his thin expressions made him really handsome. Li Mingyu was completely speechless after he got talked down like that, and Gu Jingze's expression just now really killed it. The Gu family members were all inside and Gu Jingming invited some people to join. But since she ultimately spent more time with the family, Gu Jingyan stood with them after Gu Jingze and Lin Che entered. Just then, Gu Jingyan said, "I don't know what present to get for Big Brother, so I bought him a tie. I wish that he'll quickly find a wife so I don't have to give such gifts to him anymore." She said to Lin Che, "Big Brother and second brother are usually way too boring. Besides working and earning money, I don't think they have any other hobbies." "What fools." Lin Che said, "Yes, and they're especially old-fashioned." Gu Jingyan listened and said, yes, especially old-fashioned. "So how did you take a fancy to him, sister-in-law?" Lin Che thought, "We took it to the bed first before taking a fancy. So by putting the cart before the horse, who knew that she would become his wife? Well, I was forced into it." Gu Jingze looked down and glared at Lin Che. Lin Che laughed and stuck her tongue out. After hearing Gu Jingyan talk about birthday presents, she was reminded about it and she forgot where she had placed hers. She searched her pockets and realized that it wasn't there. She thought carefully and tapped her own head. "Oh no, I left my gift in the office." Gu Jingze looked at her speechlessly. "Look at your clumsy self. What kind of intellect do you have?" Lin Che glared at him. She turned around to call Yu Minmin, hoping that she could bring it over. Yu Minmin answered the call and helplessly agreed to it. She could only open up Lin Che's box, and since it wasn't appropriate to send others to the banquet, she had no choice but to make the trip herself. When Mo Hiling entered, she looked at Li Mingyu and asked, "What happened? What took you so long to pick me up?" Li Mingyu scoffed and said, "Are you that anxious to meet your ex-lover? It's a pity. I asked him just now and he said he gave us his blessings." Mo Hiling's face changed. She looked inside and angrily said, "I don't believe you. He won't do that." Li Mingyu said, "If you don't believe it, you can ask him yourself. However, he's surrounded by the Gu family. Do you dare to go up to him? Doesn't the entire Gu family hate you? Don't end up crying when they chase you off." It wasn't easy for Mo Hiling to get Li Mingyu to bring her here. She was not going to get chased out so easily. She lifted her head and looked in that direction. Indeed, Lin Che and Gu Jingze were standing with some other people. Gu Jingze had a hand on Lin Che's shoulder as they talked. They looked so intimate that Mo Hiling felt incredibly jealous. Right next to them, she saw that the annoying Gu sister actually came back. When she was with Gu Jingze last time, Gu Jingyan was dissatisfied with her. She always picked on her. But now, Mo Hiling couldn't believe her eyes. How was Gu Jingyan talking and laughing with Lin Che? Mo Hiling gritted her teeth in anger. She watched Lin Che stand in the middle of the Gu family members and couldn't help but think that the spot was once hers. It was hers. She should be the one standing there and being the envy of others. Lin Che and Gu Jingze were still unaware that Mo Hiling's eyes were already fixated on them. Seeing that Lin Che had not eaten anything, Gu Jingze walked over to take some food for Lin Che. Lin Che said, I wonder if Sister Yu is here yet. Alright, I'll get someone to escort her in a bit. Don't worry about it, it's okay even if you don't give any presents. Big brother still owes me several million. He won't care if we don't give him anything. Oh, he owes you that much? Of course, your husband plays a big part in national duty. Really, I'm in awe. Hubby is so great, she obliged and praised him. Master is so great that the servant is in awe. Master, quick tell me. What positions do you want at home? I'll do anything, please just don't abandon me. Gu Jingze's face darkened. Looking at Lin Che who couldn't be serious, he really didn't understand how he could marry such a wife. But about the positions. He laughed and suddenly went close to her face, you'll really do any position. Lin Che was only joking but she looked at Gu Jingze's face right in front of hers and his eyes glistened with excitement. The evil aura wrapped around her and it was so menacing that she couldn't stand it. No, I was saying. Then you'll be on top tonight. Chapter 266. She was taken away by the president's guards. Bastard. I don't know how. Haha, I'll teach you. No, Lin Che was shy. Be on top. She didn't know how to take charge like that at all. Gu Jingze couldn't control his laughter. This Lin Che already did it so many times but every time this was brought up, she still behaved as shyly as a young girl. Thus, he enjoyed teasing her even more. No, when the time comes, you'll say yes, Gu Jingze said casually as if it was a matter of fact. He blinked his eyes and his long eyelashes partially shielded the sparkle inside. Lin Che felt that he was so handsome. There was almost a feeling as if she was falling into her heart but she quickly turned around, bastard, eat your food. She angrily took up a ball of food and stuffed it into his mouth. After he swallowed it, he remembered that she used her bare hands to touch it. However, he only frowned and didn't feel a tinge of disgust. He simply swallowed it, vengefully took some food, and stuffed them into her mouth too. Lin Che immediately bit his finger. Hey, are you a dog? Why did you bite me? Her teeth stayed on his finger. She was ruthless enough to bite him until it hurt. He withdrew his hand and looked at the marks on his finger. He smiled and licked it gently. In the past, he would have been so disgusted at saliva like this that he would have puked. However, he actually now felt a fiery feeling sweep over his body. He looked at Lin Che's delicate face stained red like a red moon before a windy night. It was so red that he liked it. He wanted to just have her right there and then. It was truly his first time having such malicious thoughts about a woman and he thought about it anywhere and anytime. Seeing Lin Che avoid eye contact with him, he laughed and reached out to wipe the dirt off her lips. Look at you be so messy. Lin Che said, why are you still so close if I'm messy then? Why, don't you dislike dirt? Gu Jingze said, I disliked it very much initially. Ha, I knew it. Gu Jingze looked at her, however, I'm already used to it now anyway. Lin Che asked depressingly, what do you mean you're used to it? Otherwise, although you're so messy, you're already married to me. You're my wife, so I have no choice but to accept it, right? Can't you carry a conversation well? Don't you think that a husband so honest and unhypocritical like me is extremely rare these days? Lin Che said, yeah, that's why I'm able to accept you too. If it were other people, they'd probably be angered away by you. Humph. Mo Hiling looked over from afar and saw Gu Jingze chatting with Lin Che. The two of them were close. Gu Jingze wore black, she wore white. Although their colors were contrasting, they looked like they were wearing matching couple clothing. Gu Jingze always liked wearing black clothes. It was mysterious and let him keep a low profile. It was also so suave that people couldn't take their eyes off him. But now, the person beside him was Lin Che. Mo Hilings felt extremely sour. She accompanied Gu Jingze for so many years, and it was that little slut Lin Che who ultimately benefited. She watched Gu Jingze bend down to feed Lin Che. He even reached out and used his fingers to wipe her mouth. He took such great care of Lin Che. The Gu Jingze was actually taking care of Lin Che. Gu Jingze had never taken care of her like that all these years. In fact, she couldn't even come that close to him. On top of that, his habits were usually individualistic. He didn't like being too close and he didn't like intimacy. But now, the two of them sat there so lovingly that it really made Mo Hilling want to die from jealousy. Why was Gu Jingze so good to Lin Che? Li Mingyu looked at Mo Hilling's angry appearance and laughed. Enough, stop staring. They don't know anyway. Let's go and get some drinks. We'll be happy ourselves. Don't touch me. Don't touch you. Gu Jingze is not touching you, he's touching someone else. If I don't touch you, nobody will want to touch you anymore. Stop looking. Come on. He looks so happy while you're still so angry here. Is it really worth it? Mo Hilling also knew that it wasn't worth it. However, she simply couldn't accept that Gu Jingze wasn't hers anymore. He was getting more and more intimate with Lin Che. If this continued, did this really mean that Gu Jingze fell for Lin Che? Li Mingyu ushered Mo Hilling to one side for some drinks. On the other side, Yu Minmin reached the entrance and was looking left and right. She couldn't find Lin Che. The resort had already been cordoned off and nobody else could enter. Yu Minmin looked around with the present still in her hands. She took out her phone and called Lin Che. However, she couldn't get through. When she was about to make the second call, someone already discovered her. Linda stood at the side and watched Yu Minmin. She found her familiar. This woman. The president. Her eyes lit up. She suddenly recalled, wasn't she the person that time she and the president had? Yu Minmin turned around and saw a woman dressed neatly in a black uniform blocking her. She froze. Miss Yu, this way please. Yu Minmin quickly said. I'm not here to look for any trouble. I didn't intend to come here too. There is no use in telling me whether you intended to or not. This way please. Yu Minmin still wanted to explain, but a few of the president's guards were already standing in front of her. Inside, Qin Hao called Gu Jingze out to settle some matters. Lin Che watched Gu Jingze's back and thought that he was indeed busy. People would still come to look for him if he snuck a break here. Just then, Gu Jingyan walked over and asked, Sister-in-law, did my brother abandon you again? Lin Che laughed, yeah, but it's alright. I'm used to it. Looking at Gu Jingyan, Lin Che thought that if this whole family went out on the streets together, they'd be so blindingly bright. Each one of them was too beautiful. Gu Jingyan was also way prettier than most artists. This kind of beauty was different from Gu Jingze and the guys. She was pretty and gorgeous. Just from a glance, she was stunning. Gu Jingyan said, second brother can be a little too busy. The entire family's integrity rests on his shoulders. It's lonely at the top and second brother is too serious. He wants everything to be perfect, so he does everything personally. Of course, that makes him even busier. People in C Nation admires his position, but they are also afraid of it. However, they have no clue that being able to sit at this enviable position costs a very huge price. Lin Che looked into the distance and her heart ached. She sighed and said, yes, he's really very busy. That's why I can only be understanding towards him. Gu Jingyan said, actually, second brother is already very good when he's with you. I've never seen him accompany that woman like this before. Chapter 267. His sister was also so capable. Lin Che heard this and immediately thought of Mo Hilling. Are you talking about Miss Mo? Gu Jingze only ever had one girlfriend in the past. If it wasn't Mo Hilling, who else could it be? Gu Jingyan saw Lin Che mention Mo Hilling so graciously without looking affected at all. She smiled and answered, yeah. When second brother was with Mo Hilling, he never accompanied her like this. Don't even mention accompanying her, the two would sit together so squarely like a pair of wooden blocks. They didn't move even just a little bit. Really, I suppose so. Gu Jingze is so old-fashioned while Miss Mo is a wealthy family's daughter. She's not as noisy as me. So when they're together, it must be because they have to appear so elegant that they end up being boring. Gu Jingyan said, who knows? Anyway, second brother will never look after her or feed her because he never sat and chatted with her for that long. Second brother actually never liked chatting with others. Lin Che listened in puzzlement. Is that so? He's a man of few words. He was like that when we got together at first, but it became better after we got closer. Gu Jingyan laughed and shook her head. See? It's because second brother is with you. That's why he is more talkative. You have no idea what outsiders say about him. They call him the Demon King of Ice. As long as you don't agree with him, he'll stare at you coldly, and that stare can kill someone. Who would dare to talk to him? Just then, Gu Jingze returned. As he walked over, he looked at Gu Jingyan. Are you talking bad about me? Gu Jingyan said, no, I'm putting in good words for you. She winked at Lin Che. Lin Che laughed and said, yes. She's talking about how strict you are and how everyone is afraid of you. Gu Jingyan heard Lin Che's words and almost burst out laughing. Worried that she would give herself away, Lin Che quickly said, well, Jingyan, which university did you study at? Gu Jingyan said, I'm at the University of Pennsylvania studying business and business administration. Lin Che blinked, wow, that sounds great. Gu Jingze replied, yeah. Do you think everyone is a blockhead like you? That's the top business school in the US, it's not easy to get in there. Idiot, why are you insulting me for no reason? However, Lin Che was filled with admiration. The Gu family's genes were so good, each one was more capable than the previous. Lin Che said, Jingyan, you're so smart. You're more capable than your second brother. Gu Jingyan smiled and looked at Gu Jingze, I'm only better in academics. Second brother has a lot more experience in the real battlefield and he has a PhD in several professional fields. I can't compare to him. Lin Che looked at Gu Jingze, who was smiling proudly. Lin Che glared at him and then said to Gu Jingyan, Jingyan, there must be a lot of people chasing after you when you're in school. You're so pretty and smart. Gu Jingyan said, not really. Gu Jingze said, alright, you don't have to act humble in front of Lin Che. He lowered his head and said to Lin Che, she's indeed very capable and she has no lack of suitors in school. She's the campus belle and the school's top scholar. She's a legend among the high schools in C Nation, but it's a pity. He looked at Gu Jingyan, you made it all too cheap for that Lu family's kid. Right, why isn't he here yet? Gu Jingyan looked at her wristwatch and said, I'll ask in a bit. She got up, smiled, and left. Lin Che looked at her back as she left and asked Gu Jingze, is Jingyan going to get married? Gu Jingze nodded, that's right. Lin Che asked, you don't like the guy? She could tell that Gu Jingze didn't look pleased. Gu Jingze said, I just heard from mom that the guy is the Lu family's kid. The Lu family is M Nation's royalty and M Nation's constitutional monarchy. You should know that since he's part of the M Nation royalty, so he's of equal status as us. Oh, then isn't that good? It's only right to have equal status. Gu Jingze, if you didn't have me, you would have married someone of equal status too. Gu Jingze replied, that's too bad. I'm already married and there's no turning back. Not really. If we divorced one day, you can still continue to look for that equal partner, Lin Che said. Hearing Lin Che still thinking about a divorce, Gu Jingze immediately shot her a look. Don't talk nonsense, he said coldly. What, if I angered you one day and you wanted me to leave, that would be a possibility. You're always angering me every day. Since when have I made you leave? Gu Jingze said. Lin Che looked at him, well, you're so fierce to me every day. Who knows, maybe one day, you'll go overboard. Since when have I been fierce to you? Of course you have. You've always been fierce to me. I still remember at the beginning, you didn't want me to come close to you. You would run me down whenever we had a disagreement. Gu Jingze thought about their interactions in the beginning. It did seem to be like that. It was just that at that time, Gu Jingze indeed hated her. He hated her for ruining the peace in his life and barging into his life just like that. However, he didn't know that he would become accustomed to a different kind of life one day. His hate for her wasn't that kind of disgusted hatred. He only felt that she always appeared out of nowhere in his life. He couldn't get rid of her no matter what. In the end, it became a sense of helplessness. Fine, I apologize. I was indeed fierce to you during that initial period, but you weren't any better to me. Ha, you were so fierce. How else did you expect me to react? You could have at least tried to accommodate my life. Not only did you fail to do that, you even deliberately posed in front of me. Of course, I couldn't take it. However, he still accepted her in the end. Not only did he accept her, he even began to get used to her actions. Once he got used to it, it wasn't that insufferable anymore. Yu Minmin was brought into what looked like an office. Below her feet were gray marble tiles and in front of her were dense curtains blocking out the sunlight. Only a little light peeked through and dimly lit the room, leaving shadows dancing on the ground. Yu Minmin was still trying to figure out where she was when she heard the door open from behind. A person entered. She couldn't tell what brand the custom-made leather shoes were from. The footsteps rang in the air. She turned around and was met with a pair of dark eyes. Mr. President. Yu Minmin's heart sank. Gu Jingming looked at the woman in front of him. She was staring back at him cautiously. Her face was small and she wasn't the type to look stunning with just one glance. However, what stood out were her sparkling eyes. When she gazed at him, it gave him the illusion that she could see through everything. Imperious. Exactly, it gave one an imperious feeling. Chapter 268. Someone came here to cause a ruckus. Gu Jingming stood in front of Yu Minmin. She was still feeling embarrassed as a problem that she thought she solved had just appeared right in front of her again. He looked different from on screen. He seemed very cold. I already told you before. If you need money, I can give it to you. But don't appear around here again. Why, are you going back on your word now? Yu Minmin looked up at him. You've got it wrong. I came here to give Lin Che something that she forgot. I never wanted to come here. Gu Jingming asked, what do you need to give her? A birthday present that she left in the office. I think it's for you, she replied seriously. She turned around to find the gift but it wasn't there. She panicked and then recalled that when she first came in, she was afraid that Lin Che would lose it. She didn't know where to go either, so she quickly left it in the car. Gu Jingming saw her empty hands. There was obviously nothing. He laughed coldly, it looks like you weren't completely prepared. Yu Minmin looked at Gu Jingming, how can I prove to you that I didn't come here with any other motive? Gu Jingming said, that is now your problem, so you think of that yourself. Otherwise, you can only stay here today. Why? Yu Minmin looked up and did not show any sign of weakness. You don't have the evidence to show that I'm here to get close to you, do you? Gu Jingming said, but there are people outside. I can't take any risks just to come up with evidence for this problem. Thus, you'll have to suffer today. No, but I still have things to do. Yu Minmin reached up and scratched him. Gu Jingming looked down coldly at her and grabbed her hand. At that moment, Yu Minmin forgot that she was scratching the president. She quickly stepped back and let go. She said, Mr. President, it's really not my intention to try to get close to you. I've told your people countless times that I didn't mean it, whether it's about that thing or... Stop, the mention of that thing made him frown and turn around. The temperature in the room became much lower because of his eyes. Yu Minmin gritted her teeth, I'm really just here to look for Lin Che. If you have something for Lin Che, I'll get somebody to give it to her. You must stay here now. You, quote. Gu Jingming already walked out. Yu Minmin could only sit inside and speechlessly watch him leave. Outside. Linda lowered her head and said to Gu Jingming, Mr. President, how do you want to deal with her now? Gu Jingming looked out the window and thought about how they just interacted right then. Watch her. Wait for the party to end before letting her leave. Yes. Gu Jingming didn't think that he would meet her again. However, she was Lin Che's agent. They were so close to each other that the possibility of meeting was always there. Gu Jingze couldn't find Gu Jingming anywhere. After a long while, he finally saw Gu Jingming come out from inside with a bothered expression on his face. Gu Jingze walked over. Big brother, what happened? Gu Jingming looked at him and shook his head, nothing. There were just some matters at work. Gu Jingming turned back to see that Yu Minmin was still locked inside. Lin Che saw Gu Jingze talking with Gu Jingming, so she took some food and walked around on her own. When she was walking down, a hand forcefully pulled her aside. Lin Che turned to see that Mo Hilling was actually here. Her eyes widened as she looked at Mo Hilling. She was smiling coldly at her and seeping with hatred. Lin Che instantly thought about how it would look if she caused a ruckus in the presence of the entire Gu family. Mo Hilling, no matter what you say it all to Gu Jingze. I have no part in this. Mo Hilling glared at her and was about to slap her. However, Lin Che grabbed her hand and prevented the slap. Mo Hilling didn't expect her to react so quickly. She wanted to use her other hand but was also stopped by Lin Che. Lin Che grabbed both of her arms and she looked at Mo Hilling. What are you trying to do, Mo Hilling? The whole Gu family is here. If you create a ruckus here, it won't benefit anybody. Mo Hilling then thought about it and grunted coldly, great. I believe it's more likely that my persistence won't benefit you. Tell me, does the Gu family know that your marriage with Gu Jingze is contractual and set for a divorce? Lin Che froze. She didn't think that Mo Hilling would bring this up. Gu Jingze told her all these in the beginning and Lin Che could understand why. But she didn't expect her to actually bring it up now. Mo Hilling noticed that she was indeed afraid. She scoffed and asked, aren't you likable? When the Gu family knows that you agreed to this contractual marriage because of money and not love, you'll see if they still think that a prostitute like you is likable. Lin Che was still stunned, but Mo Hilling's face suddenly changed and she began to cry as she looked behind. She heard Mo Hilling wail tragically, Jingze, you see how Lin Che treats me when she sees me. Gu Jingze was here. Lin Che turned around. Gu Jingze already pushed Mo Hilling away without any hesitation. Mo Hilling stumbled before regaining her balance. This place was further away, so nobody saw them. Gu Jingze glanced at his family to check if they were out of their sight. He then looked at Mo Hilling with disgust. What are you doing here? Mo Hilling didn't expect him to push her away and stand beside Lin Che without even asking anything. She hit me. Aren't you going to ask anything? Enough, Hilling. She would never hit you. If you want to create a nuisance, you can leave here and do it as much as you like at home. Lin Che's heart moved when Gu Jingze stood by her side. She looked up at Gu Jingze and felt inexplicably touched. Mo Hilling smiled coldly at Gu Jingze. Gu Jingze, you're so ruthless. Gu Jingze did not have a slight tinge of trust in her now. He only wanted her to leave as soon as possible. Who let you in here? Mo Hilling said, as a lady from the Mo family, can't I come here? I'm giving you the time now to leave this place, Gu Jingze ordered coldly. Mo Hilling was unwilling. What right do you have to do that? I'm not leaving. You're not leaving. I don't want to make things ugly for you, Hilling. Leave by yourself. Otherwise, I'll make sure you're taken away. I'm giving you a choice now. Mo Hilling looked at Gu Jingze in disbelief. Was he really that heartless towards her now? Mo Hilling said, fine. If you dare to take me away, I'll shout immediately. I want to ask the Gu family if they know that you and Lin Che share a contractual marriage. Did they know how Lin Che is cheating them and that you only married Lin Che to appease them? I want to ask them if they know that this is all an act. Chapter 269. Why did I ever love a woman like that? Gu Jingze's eyes paused. Feeling Mo Hilling grit her teeth, he realized that for the first time that this woman had a fierce side to her. He never worried about having to explain the situation to his family, but it was definitely going to invite unnecessary trouble if they caused a scene here. Especially in the eyes and judgment of others, it wasn't going to be good for Lin Che. Gu Jingze said, if you want to fight me, it's not going to do anybody good. Hilling, I advise you to back off now. No, I'm not backing off. Why should I? It's all because of you, Gu Jingze. You're so ruthless. Lin Che, he's so ruthless. He can just throw away many years of a relationship like that. The next person he'll abandon will be you. Gu Jingze frowned. Taking the chance while Mo Hilling was still talking, he gave a look to his men behind him. Before Mo Hilling could react, someone covered her mouth forcefully. She was immediately dragged away. She struggled, but since she couldn't win the bodyguard, she continued being pulled away. Silence followed and Gu Jingze only sighed in relief after she was gone. Lin Che said, Don't bother about her. She must be crazy. But what if she really tells the family? I'll let my men keep watch and make sure she doesn't go to our family. Anyway, she actually wouldn't dare to. Lin Che nodded. After it was confirmed that Mo Hilling was sent out, Gu Jingze brought Lin Che back in. The banquet continued here at night. Lin Che and Gu Jingze already decided to stay at one of the villas at the resort. Although Lin Che spent the entire day playing, she was dead tired. She sat there and dozed off. Gu Jingze saw her and said to Mu Wanqing, "Mother, if there's nothing else, I'm heading back first." Mu Wanqing looked at the drowsy Lin Che. She smiled and agreed. Gu Jingze patted Lin Che and woke her up. She sleepily left the place with Gu Jingze. Gu Jingyan watched the two of them leave. She smiled and said to Mu Wanqing, "I didn't think that second brother would care so much for someone else." Mu Wanqing replied, "Indeed. I feel much more at ease seeing him change. He's no longer that cold and heartless anymore. Otherwise, I would have been really afraid that he wouldn't be able to find anybody and would have to spend the rest of his life alone." Gu Jingyan said, "Yes. Also, I think that my sister-in-law is a very good person. Yes, I liked her the moment I saw her." Gu Jingyan said, "That's right. She looks so simple and pure. So enviably pure." Mu Wanqing asked, "Didn't you say that Liu Baikan would come soon? Where is he?" Gu Jingyan's face changed. She turned away and quickly changed the subject. Lin Che walked on the road with a whole entourage behind her, ready at her service. Lin Che was already used to it. Whenever Gu Jingze stepped out, it was always such a big commotion. She found it scary initially, but now, she didn't think too much of it. She was rather unstable and almost fell. Thankfully, Gu Jingze was beside her and holding her arm. When he got a good grip on her, he frowned at her. "Look at yourself. You're so dumb. Sigh, what would you do without me?" Yes, she was really dumb. What would she have done without him? She dared not to think about that question. "My legs are just feeling numb from standing the whole day. I'm not that stupid, okay?" Lin Che retorted. Gu Jingze heard this and immediately looked at her legs. "What? Your legs are numb?" "Yeah, just a little. It's all right," Lin Che said. However, Gu Jingze carried her up. "Hey, you. Don't move. We'll talk when we go in," he said as he licked her light body and headed towards the nearby villa. Very quickly, they were inside and the people behind them dispersed. He let the maids rest for the day, leaving only him and Lin Che in the big room. Gu Jingze let her down on the sofa and she sat there. After that, he squatted down and reached out to take off her shoes. Realizing that he was taking her shoes off, Lin Che quickly said, "No, it's dirty. I've been wearing these shoes the whole day and never took them off." Gu Jingze looked up at her. "No wonder your legs are numb. You wore shoes for the entire day. Why didn't you take them off to check your feet? Hold on, let me check what's going on." But aren't you afraid of smelly feet?" She looked at him and mumbled. Gu Jingze looked at her. "Do you have smelly feet?" "Of course not," Lin Che hurriedly replied. "Then, there is no problem," he said and continued taking off her shoes. Lin Che wanted to say that although there was no odor, it was still dirty. However, Gu Jingze didn't seem to care. He took her shoes off and pressed her feet. Lin Che looked at him in embarrassment. "It's dirty. Don't you dislike it?" Gu Jingze said, "Even if you're dirty, you're my wife. As your husband, I can't dislike my own wife." Lin Che felt her heart become so sweet as if she ate honey. She looked at Gu Jingze kneeling gracefully on the floor. She couldn't help but feel amazed. How did she ever meet such a man? No wonder Mo Hilling was very angry. She also thought that she was obviously so average. Lin Che said, "Miss Mo must be so mad that you treated her that way today." "She asked for it. She was too much today," Gu Jingze said. Gu Jingze didn't want to talk about Mo Hilling at all. Until now, he still couldn't understand why he thought that Mo Hilling was gracious, elegant and beautiful in the beginning. He saw wrongly. He was blind to fall in love with such a woman. He never regretted doing anything, but this matter made him regretful. He regretted wasting so many years with Mo Hilling and for even wanting to marry her. But Mo Hilling was this kind of woman. Thus, Gu Jingze only wanted to treat Lin Che better. He didn't despise Lin Che at all, especially when he thought about how Lin Che didn't despise him. He thought that a husband and wife indeed couldn't hate each other for their flaws. He puked so horrendously at that time and she didn't say anything. She only took off the shoes and didn't care about the filth. When Gu Jingze and Lin Che went in, they didn't plan to go out again. Lin Che went to shower while Gu Jingze sat outside listening to the water run. He suddenly thought of how he had been married to Lin Che for so long but there were never any romantic gestures. They never had a wedding ceremony or wedding rings. There was nothing. Gu Jingze began to blame himself. Thinking about it, he picked up his phone and made a call. Send 2 people here now. I need help with something. Inside, Lin Che finished showering and didn't feel tired anymore. She wore her pajamas and walked out comfortably. However, when she stepped out, she saw petals on the bed. Warm music echoed but there was no one in sight. Chapter 270. Want you to be happy because of me. Lin Che stopped rubbing her hair. She was still stunned as she listened to the gentle music. Then, she felt a strong breath getting closer behind her. She quickly turned around and saw the man standing at the door. He wore a plain V-neck t-shirt that revealed his exquisite collarbone. Below was a pair of cotton trousers which toned down his ferociousness. He now had a rare, warming aura. Lin Che froze and looked at the man in front of her. He suddenly walked over while his deep eyes gazed into Lin Che's eyes. They were like diamonds shining brightly in the galaxy. His smile gave her an illusion of deep affection swarming in her chest. Gu Jingze looked at her, not knowing if this was a special arrangement made by Mu Wanqing or if it was because this was the honeymoon suite. The bed was large and round and it faced the man-made lake. On the other side of the lake, they could see the flickering of stars in the night sky. It looked just like a painting. Lin Che had never experienced such a romantic scene. She looked at Gu Jingze and asked in surprise, "What is this?" Gu Jingze. She only took a little over 10 minutes to shower and he was able to prepare all of this. Was he a magician? Gu Jingze didn't speak. His dark eyes stared into hers. As if understanding what he wanted to do, her heart began to fire up. She lowered her head slightly and secretly looked up at this man. Her face blushed in an instant. The more she looked at him, the more tongue-tied she got. When she gazed at his red lips, she had the urge to rush up to him and bite them. His lips were thin but extremely full. They opened slightly and made Lin Che's heart fired up even more. Sauntering up to Gu Jingze, she said, "Well, you." Tonight, Gu Jingze didn't want to get into the usual frenzy with her. He walked slowly towards her and gently lowered his head. His long fingers combed through her hair. Her head naturally tilted upward. Her eyes looked shyly at him. He wanted her to feel that their marriage was blissful and not an obligation. He also wanted her to feel that their marriage could bring her happiness instead of being a burden. However, since he actually never interacted with a woman normally before, he had no idea what a woman needed. He thought that their first time was too sloppy. He wanted her in that blurry state and he assumed that it must have hurt for her too. Other girls definitely had a wonderful first time but she suffered in pain. After they married, he never touched her either. Thus, he never gave her a good memory at all. So this time, he slowly moved closer to her. He gently touched her lips. Seeing her close her eyes, he then gently kissed her lips. Lin Che moaned and felt his kiss. It was as gentle as the music, it was so gentle that it amazed her. He put her down gently on the bed as if she was the most precious jewel. He kissed every inch of skin on her body. Slowly, softly, he lit up every cell in her body. He was a little nervous, a little uncomfortable, and a little impatient. He was a little worried that she wouldn't feel good. He was worried if he was doing the right thing and if he was making her happy. He really felt as if he was a novice. It was as if it was the first time that he wanted to know a woman and that made him nervous. Lin Che grabbed his hand and he greedily bit her finger. He licked her fingertips which drove Lin Che crazy. Had this man gone crazy tonight? Her body arched uncontrollably as if she wanted to welcome his body. He spread her legs and Lin Che exclaimed, "Gu Jingze, what are you doing?" "No. It's fine, don't move. Leave tonight to me." "No, no, I can't, it's dirty, you. Don't move, be good. Let me take a look. I really can't, you. Lin Che felt extremely shy, but she was completely weakened by the chaos in her mind. She softened under his teasing. She had no resistance at all as she collapsed in his gentleness. He liked looking at her when she was dazed. He liked seeing her feel good. Every expression of hers seemed to encourage him and make him feel that it was all worth it. In an instant, his heart had a kind of urge to offer the whole world to her just to see her smile. Although it was extremely unbearable for him and he wanted to explode, he waited until she relaxed completely before he hugged her tightly. That night, Lin Che felt something that she never felt before. She felt especially fulfilled. Naturally, it wasn't her who moved, but she still felt tired. The two of them hugged tightly and fell asleep together. Mo Hilling was so quietly brought out of the house. Outside, she didn't expect that Gu Jingze would actually treat her this way. She quickly called Li Mingyu and he came over to pick Mo Hilling up. Seeing Mo Hilling's ashen face, he laughed and brought her back to the Mo family. Inside her room, she angrily flung everything inside and created a mess. Li Mingyu hadn't gotten his end of the bargain, so he naturally didn't leave. Seeing her so angry, he went to embrace her. Mo Hilling jumped in shock and pushed Li Mingyu away. But Li Mingyu didn't let go. He looked at her and said, "All right, you're still saving yourself for Gu Jingze. Come on, let's have some fun. This is something that will make both of us feel good. Why are you resisting?" Mo Hilling said, "Humph. My first time is for Gu Jingze. Why would I tarnish myself with a playboy like you? You've had so many women outside. I despise your filth." Li Mingyu froze. He looked at Mo Hilling in disbelief. "No way, your first time. Who are you trying to kid?" Mo Hilling said, "Why would I lie to you? Humph, you think everybody is like you. Weren't you with Gu Jingze for many years? But Jingze is a gentleman. He would never do anything to me." Mo Hilling didn't mention Gu Jingze's illness. This was the Gu family's secret and she wasn't planning to let Li Mingyu know either. Li Mingyu scoffed and said, "Then, you don't understand men at all. If a man has feelings towards a woman, the body reacts first. He was with you for so many years and yet he never touched you. Are you sure that he really loved you?